Okay, I'd like to start by welcoming everyone to Tung. Welcome. Nice to see all of you guys here. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. Today is our group learning program where each Sunday I get together with students, helping them to understand the path to enlightenment. We start with meditation, and then afterwards I'll share a talk with you guys based on this book. It's titled Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment. Each Sunday I go chapter by chapter, helping students to be able to understand the path to enlightenment. The individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago how to get to enlightenment. What enlightenment is where the mind's completely peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy. By the time you get to enlightenment, you'll no longer experience any discontent feelings. You will have eliminated all the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety, loneliness, boredom, shyness, resentment. You can eliminate all of this from the mind by training the mind. So for the last 7 months, I've been teaching students through this book, going chapter by chapter, helping them to understand what it takes to be able to get to this enlightened mental state. And today's the last day of this program where I'm going to be teaching a topic called the 5 hindrances. These are the 5 obstructions or the 5 obstacles to actually getting to enlightenment. Because for the last 7 months, I've been teaching students how to actually attain enlightenment, but there are certain things that are going to block you or hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. So we're going to be talking about the 5 hindrances, and I'm going to be teaching you the 7 factors of enlightenment. This is a tool that helps you to fine-tune the mind, because everything that the Buddha taught is about training your mind, uprooting certain pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. And as you do, you'll see the mind will perform better and better. So I'm going to be sharing that after our meditation. We start each class with meditation, and if you'd like to join along, you're more than welcome to. The way that I start with meditation is I start with some chanting. This helps to ease the mind into meditation and get more benefit out of the meditation itself. During the lifetime of the Buddha, he used chanting as a way to help his students to commit the teachings to memory. Every 2 weeks, his students would come together and they would recite his teachings orally because they didn't have the technology to write things down and study the teachings that way. Where today we have YouTube videos, podcasts, audiobooks, we have actual books, we have many ways to be able to study and commit the teachings to our memory. But during his lifetime, they didn't have any of that. So they used chanting. So you can see from the origins of chanting that this was used as a learning tool, as a learning device. It's not a rite, ritual, ceremony, worship, or prayer. There's none of those kinds of things in the teachings of the Buddha. If you're seeing those kinds of things related to his teachings, those aren't his actual teachings. Those are misunderstandings that people are having. So if you would like to chant along, it actually will help you to get into the meditation and actually benefit you there. There's chanting sheets over there on the cabinet that you're welcome to help yourself to. And for those of you guys that are online, you'll find this on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com. You can click on free books and scroll down about 2/3 of the way down the page and you'll see it there. You guys are welcome to help yourself if you guys, I see some of you guys looking like you feel like you can't go get it. So feel free to go get one if you'd like, up to you. So we're going to be chanting these as we ease into the meditation. And if you end up getting one of these chanting sheets, you're going to see the English translations on the chants. The English translations, you're going to see a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for the Buddha. And because of that, I don't think the Buddha even created these chants himself. They were probably created by his students either during his life or after his death. Because the Buddha wouldn't have walked around and said, "Here, chant these chants to me out of respect for me," right? This would be ego or arrogance if someone chose to do this. And by the time you got to enlightenment, you don't actually have that in the mind anymore. So I'm sure the Buddha wouldn't have gone around and said, "Here, chant these chants to me." But if you learn from a teacher how to move from anger, sadness, frustration, and all those other discontent feelings to the peaceful and joyful mental state that's enlightenment. And this teacher didn't want anything from you or expect anything from you. They were just helping you out of the kindness of their heart. You'd probably have a lot of appreciation, gratitude, and respect for that person too. So that's why I think these chants came from his students either during his life or after his death. So we'll be chanting these on the way in. And then once we're in the meditation, I'll be providing you some guidance and instruction, essentially teaching you how to meditate while we're actually meditating. Then there's going to be a period of time of quietness where we're all meditating. Everyone here at the temple and anybody joining online, we'll just all be meditating at the same time. During this period of time of quietness, I'm sure you're going to hear occasional sounds. You might hear a car go by, a dog barking, a bird chirping, someone here might cough or sneeze. This is all normal. If you're in meditation, with a craving for permanent silence, when you hear a sound, you'll cause your mind to be annoyed or frustrated. This is why you can eliminate your discontent feelings, because it's the mind itself that's actually causing them. The mind in the unenlightened state craves permanence, but you live in an impermanent world where things are constantly changing. So if you're in meditation, understanding that the world is impermanent and you hear a sound, you already understand that that's the way the world works. That's normal, that this sound is going to arise, it's going to change, and then it's going to fade away. And then after that period of time of quietness, we're going to come out of the meditation with some more chanting. And then that's where I'll start today's class, helping you guys to understand the 7 Factors of Enlightenment and the 5 Hindrances. This is part of the teachings that help you to be able to move your mind to this enlightened mental state. In terms of your body position for meditation, there's 4 positions that the Buddha taught: seated, lying, standing, and walking. And you would learn these different positions at different times as part of your journey to enlightenment. It's kind of like having a tool belt, and you use the different tools that you need at different times in order to be able to help you in your journey to enlightenment. You can learn these in various retreats and courses and things like that. But what I'll do is I'll give you guys just a little bit of guidance on the seated position, because this will kind of help you if you're maybe new to meditation, or if you'd like to find something that's more comfortable for yourself. I'll give you some suggestions or some ideas to consider. But just understand that there's not just one way to sit. You can sit however you like. If there's just one way to sit, that would be permanence, and we don't live in that world. All of our bodies are different, and we're going to find different things that are comfortable. So find whatever's comfortable for you. If it's something that I share with you, great. If it's something you come up with on your own, you can use that as well. You're not training your body here. You're training the mind. So what's important is that the body's comfortable, not painful and not luxurious, but in the middle where it's comfortable. So you could be sitting on the floor, you could be sitting in a chair, maybe if you're at home, you're on a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can sit however you like. If you're on the floor, you might have some cushions under your rear. That's kind of going to help soften your seat a little bit. And if you're going to bring your legs together in the cross-leg position, you might just choose to do this lightly. Whereas if it's real tight, this can impede the circulation in the lower body and cause pain. Some people like to put their legs off the mat. This gets your hips up in the air, and it lessens the angle at the hips, the knees, and the ankles, allowing the circulation to flow. The Buddha put his right hand over his left with his thumbs together, and he put this into his lap. If this is comfortable for you, you could use it. But it's not about everyone doing it exactly the same way. Some people like to put their palms on their thighs or their knees. Some people put their palms up, and you might even decide to rest your hands comfortably in your lap. So you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. And the same thing's true for anybody who's in a chair or a bench or a sofa or in a wheelchair. You can also sit however you like. Some people like to put their feet flat on the floor or lightly cross at the ankles, but you can see me sitting in a chair here with my legs crossed. So this is an option for you as well. And then you can put your hands and arms wherever you like. It's helpful if the upper body is erect with the sternum up and the shoulders back. This will help keep the mind attentive and alert during the meditation. What meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. So you'd like the mind to be attentive and alert during the meditation. Whereas if you were slouched like this, the mind would have a tendency to be dull or lethargic. But if you were real rigid, the mind could be overactive or uptight. So you'd like the upper body to be erect with the sternum up and shoulders back, because not only will it keep the mind attentive and alert, but it'll make it easy for you to breathe in through the nose and out through the nose. So again, I'm going to get started with some chanting. You guys are welcome to join in, and then I'll come back in with the guidance afterwards. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakeva Potang Mahakavanang Apivate Ami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Savaka Sankho Sanghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa. Iti piso emagawa arahang sama sammuto vicacaranang sammuno sakatoro kawitu anutero purisa dhamma sati satatawa manusanang Poto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect. Just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath. A nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathing gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the breath well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. สัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาโอตังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเตมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนัมสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมหาเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิจาจารณังสัมมุโนสขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสาดัมมาสติสัตตาตาวามนุสรังโอโตภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone joining online as well. As I was mentioning at the beginning of class, the individual who we refer to as the Buddha figured out 2,500 years ago how to get to enlightenment. This meditation is part of that training, but it's not the only thing. You actually need other things besides meditation. One of the biggest myths about the life story of the Buddha is sometimes people think he sat under a tree, he meditated, and then he instantly got to enlightenment. This isn't actually true. It took him 6 years to be able to train his mind to get to enlightenment. And while this meditation is an important part of your journey in order to be able to train your mind to get to enlightenment, there's other things that you need to learn and understand and to be able to train your mind. It's just like we learned how to clean this body. We know how to brush our teeth. We know how to brush our hair. We know how to clip our fingernails and our toenails. We've learned all these different things about how to clean the body. There's multiple things that you need to learn in order to be able to clean the mind. Right now, if you're only cleaning the body, then you're not addressing this full being who you are. And if you walked around several days, weeks, months, or years without cleaning this body, you'd feel very uncomfortable. The same thing is true about the mind. If you haven't learned how to clean the mind, and maybe none of us grew up learning how to clean our mind, then of course you have stress and anxiety and frustration and all these other feelings that are experienced. But by the time you train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state, you would have eliminated all of that. There are certain causes and conditions that are producing these discontent feelings. And the Buddha figured out what those are, and he figured out the tools and the techniques of how to eliminate them from the mind. And that's what his teachings share with you, is about how to actually eliminate the causes and conditions that are producing things like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. others. By the time you get to enlightenment, you won't experience those feelings anymore. You'll notice that your mind is focused. You'll have concentration, clarity, and deep memory. Because with these pollutions in the mind that the Buddha discovered, you'll lack those qualities. You'll tend to lack focus, concentration, clarity, and memory. But by the time you train your mind and uproot these pollutions, your mind's performing optimally by that point. You'll notice that your personal and professional relationships are really blossoming. Because in the unenlightened state, you'll have a certain amount of bitterness, harshness, and hostility in your mind. And you'll think it's other people that are actually causing that in you, but it's actually your own mind that's producing that. And as long as you're putting that out in your relationships, this is all coming back to you. So by the time you get to enlightenment, you'll notice that you're not being bitter and harsh and hostile to people any longer, and it'll really improve your relationships. They'll be at ease and they'll be really blossoming. You'll notice that it's even impossible for you to have a bad mood by the time you get to enlightenment. Your mind is cheerful, bright, glad, radiant, and uplifted at all times because you've uprooted the causes and conditions that are producing that disgruntledness, that frustration, that irritability in the mind. So what I've been doing here is training people throughout the 7-month period of this particular program, helping them to be able to understand what it takes to be able to train their mind to get to this enlightened mental state. And we have other programs here as well. It's not just this one, but next week we're going to be starting this program from the very beginning. So whether you're here in Chiang Mai or whether you're online, you can actually start this program from the very beginning, where we walk through each Sunday chapter by chapter in this book. So on August 9th at 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Thai time, I'm going to be starting the program from the very beginning. And you can attend here, you can attend by live stream through Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can even watch the recordings each week. And then slowly but surely, you can learn what it takes to be able to train your mind, getting closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. What I'm doing here at the very end of this program, now that I've been teaching students for 7 months how to train their mind to get to enlightenment, is I'm going to share with you the obstructions or the obstacles that are going to hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment. The Buddha refers to these as the 5 hindrances. And there's something called the 7 Factors of Enlightenment that are actually the solution to being able to solve this and get this out of the mind. So I'm going to be sharing with you guys the 5 hindrances and the 7 Factors of Enlightenment. And I'm going to be pausing a few times and opening up for questions because that's part of your journey to enlightenment. It's very rare that somebody would ever understand things right from the very beginning. You're going to need to ask questions. So if you guys would like to ask questions, you're more than welcome to. Here at the temple, we have microphones in the white bowl there in the middle of the room. There's also some up here in the front. If you have a question, if you could just get a microphone and take it back to your seat. If you press the gray button, you're going to see the lights come on. And if you could hold this up to your chin, we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online as well. If you speak here without a microphone, they won't be able to hear you online. And then you can keep these with you because you might have more than one question, or someone around you might have a question and you can just share it with them. And if you're not using it, if you could turn it off, that'll be helpful so we don't get feedback through the speakers. And then for anybody who's online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section, and I'll be able to see that. Or in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand, unmute your microphone, and then ask any and all questions that you like that way. So everything that we do here is based on the original words of the Buddha. It's important for you, if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, is to study the original words of the Buddha. And oftentimes when I say that, people might think, well, of course, like, well, what else would you do if you're interested in studying the Buddha's teachings? Wouldn't you use his original words? I realize that sounds very obvious, but in the world, there's very few people who actually study with the original words of the Buddha. There's about 500 million people in the world that consider themselves to be Buddhist. Very, 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 very small percentage of them actually study with the original words of the Buddha. This is why we actually see so many misunderstandings in the world about the teachings of the Buddha. I've been to over 200 temples in my life, and I've only ever been to one temple that actually shares the original words of the Buddha. If you do the math on that, that's less than 1%. So it's very few people in the world that actually study with his original words. But if you're interested in getting to enlightenment, you're going to need to study with his original words. You wouldn't even be able to get to the first stage of enlightenment, let alone enlightenment itself, without studying with his original words. So everything that I do is I base it on the original words of the Buddha, and I make those teachings available to you through the books and all the other resources that I share, and it's all available to you at no cost. Any of these books that you see around, you can actually download them from free from our website. You can take it and go print it yourself if you like. You can get printed versions here by reimbursing us for the printing cost, and then we'll use those funds to purchase more books. Or you can order it on Amazon. If you have access to Amazon, you can order these books on there. So you can get access to his original teachings. But even when I'm teaching like this, I share with you the Buddha's words so you can see that what I'm teaching you, and you can build confidence that it's coming from the Buddha, that I'm not making anything up here. The way that the teachings of the Buddha work is that there's no belief in his teachings. You're not believing anything whatsoever. With belief, you don't know what's true or false. You're just believing it because somebody convinced you to believe it, or you convinced yourself to believe it. With belief, you're just maybe not understanding truly what's going on in the world because you haven't verified it for yourself. In order to be able to get to enlightenment, you need to cultivate wisdom. And in order to cultivate wisdom, you need to first understand something intellectually. You need to learn it, investigate it, and examine it. That's what you're doing with books and classes like this and things of that nature. You need to intellectually understand a certain teaching. But then you need to move something into reflection where you independently verify it based on your own experiences in life. You need to independently verify the teachings that are being shared with you. All the teachings of the Buddha can be independently verified. Then you would like to take those teachings and integrate them into your life to be able to practice the teachings. When you're practicing them and you're making decisions through the teachings, that's where the real transformation is occurring. And you'll see that the mind is gradually moving closer and closer to this enlightened mental state. Because sometimes we can understand something intellectually, but we don't actually make the decision in our life in that way. So for example, we might have grown up understanding that it's unwise to use drugs and alcohol, for example, and intellectually we might have understood that, but maybe we still have done it, or maybe we still do it. Maybe that's a decision that someone's making that they're not actually practicing in this way. So there's intellectual understanding, but then there's actually practicing and making a choice of how to actually do something in your life. And that's for you to decide. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't be doing, but if you're interested in getting to the peace and the joy of this enlightened mental state, the Buddha figured this out, and his teachings lead exactly where he said they do, to this peaceful and joyful mental state. And as you learn the teachings intellectually by investigating and examining them, you reflect on them to verify them, and then you practice his teachings, integrating them into your life, you'll see the truth for yourself that the mind's moving closer and closer to this peaceful and joyful mental state. Because you know what, when situations where you get angry or frustrated or irritated, and when you're experiencing those same situations and you've been training your mind with these teachings and your mind's not angry or frustrated anymore, you'll know that it's these teachings that are leading to that. So I'm going to share with you guys some of the words that the Buddha shares on these 5 hindrances so you can see that he actually taught them and that this is something that is part of his teachings. This is his words where he was talking about the 5 hindrances. He says, monks, there are these 5 hindrances. What 5? The hindrance of sensual desire, the hindrance of ill will, the hindrance of complacency, the hindrance of restlessness and worry, the hindrance of doubt. These are the 5 hindrances. This noble eightfold path is to be developed for direct knowledge or experience of these 5 hindrances, for the full understanding of them, their complete destruction, for their abandoning. So there's a teaching called the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha that everything else plugs into. I'm going to be teaching this next week, or I guess it's this week now, that Monday through Friday. I'm going to be teaching a course next week, which is called Foundation in the Path to Enlightenment. And Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. I'm going to be teaching here to be able to help you guys to understand the path to enlightenment. So if you guys would like to come to that, you're more than welcome. It's available to everyone. It's available at no cost. On Tuesday morning, I'm going to be teaching the Eightfold Path, because in order to be able to get to enlightenment, that is the path to enlightenment. You would need to learn that teaching inside and out, and that's helping you to train your mind to get to this enlightened mental state. So in terms of anything related to the path to enlightenment, it all comes back to the Eightfold Path, that's the core central teaching that a student would need to learn inside and out, backwards and forwards to really get started on the path to enlightenment. So the Eightfold Path is a solution to anything that's going on in the mind. It'll help you to clean up your mind and get to the point where the mind's experiencing enlightenment. But then there's other teachings that plug into this Eightfold Path that help you to be able to further train your mind. And there's other teachings where the Buddha talks about the 7 factors of enlightenment being a solution for the 5 hindrances. So when you see a teaching like this from the Buddha, it's important that you don't take it in isolation, that you understand the totality of his teachings. So while here he's saying that the 5 hindrances are solved by the Eightfold Path, you'll see other teachings from the Buddha where he says it's the 7 factors of enlightenment that solve the 5 hindrances. So he kind of approaches it from different angles, right? So yes, the Eightfold Path is something that I've taught in this program in order to be able to help people understand how to get to enlightenment. But today what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the 7 factors of enlightenment, because it's not something that I've taught yet as part of this program. But first, let's just kind of talk a little bit about what the 5 hindrances are before we talk about the solution, which is the 7 factors of enlightenment. The 5 hindrances have similarities to something that's called the 10 fetters. The 10 fetters are 10 individual pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind, and he figured out how to uproot them. Ultimately, that's what's keeping the mind in the unenlightened state. The reason why we call them fetters is because during the lifetime of the Buddha, if you were someone that they were trying to keep confined to a certain area, they would attach a fetter around your ankle. What a fetter is a shackle and a chain and a ball, and they would keep you out in a field. Where today we put those types of individuals in a jail cell or in a prison cell, and they stay confined to a certain area so they're not causing harm to others. Where during the lifetime of the Buddha, they would just attach a fetter around your ankle. So when the Buddha discovers these pollutions in the mind and how it's keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state, he calls them fetters because it's keeping the mind confined or trapped in the continuous experience of having anger and sadness and frustration and all these feelings over and over and over again. But just like the prisoner, if you release the shackle off their ankle, they're now free. They can roam about the world. The same thing is true with your mind, that if you release these 10 fetters out of the mind, it's now free. That's why we call it liberation. When you get to enlightenment, the mind is now liberated. It's now free. So the 5 hindrances have some similarities to the 10 fetters, but the 10 fetters are the deepest level of detail that the Buddha shares about these pollutions. It's through learning and practicing the Eightfold Path that's going to actually eliminate the 10 fetters. But then you also are going to need the 7 factors of enlightenment to fine-tune the mind, where the Eightfold Path is kind of like if you were creating a sculpture and you had a piece of wood, you would probably get out a hatchet or an axe and start chucking off big chunks of wood at the beginning. But then after you do that for a while, you would start using finer tools to go in and kind of fine-tune the sculpture, maybe to put the eyelashes in or the wrinkles around the eyes or something like this. You would use a really fine kind of tool. The same thing is true. The Eightfold Path is kind of like painting with a broad brush, or the big hatchet, the axe, that's kind of like chucking off big chunks of wood. The 7 factors of enlightenment are kind of the fine tool to go in and fine tune the mind. So that's what you're going to be able to learn today about how to fine tune the mind. The name here, 7 factors of enlightenment, sometimes people think it's the 7 criteria to determine whether or not you actually have gotten to enlightenment or not. But instead, it's actually a tool that's going to help you to get to enlightenment and fine tune the mind. The Buddha's teachings oftentimes point to each other. He kind of has this layered approach in his teachings. So for example, like there's something called the 3 universal truths, the 4 noble truths, the Eightfold Path, the 5 precepts. These are all kind of interlaid and kind of layered together. So you'll see that not only with these teachings, but with the 10 fetters and the 5 hindrances as well. So if you're experiencing struggles or impediments on the path to enlightenment, you can look at the 5 hindrances and see what is it that's hindering you from being able to move forward on the path. Because you'll see from the condition of your mind how you're moving closer and closer to this path to enlightenment. The teachings of the Buddha aren't believe, 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 and then hope something good happens when you die. It's about learning, growing, and developing in this life, doing this inner work, this inner growth, this inner development, so you can see the progress that you're making in this life. But if you're not making progress and you feel kind of stuck, what you do is you look at the 5 hindrances and figure out which one of these, or maybe multiple of them, is hindering you or obstructing you from making progress on the path. And now as you start working on removing that, that's what's going to help you with your progress on the path. So I'm going to help you to first understand the 7 factors of enlightenment, because then when I teach you the 5 hindrances, these are the actual solutions and you'll understand the solutions. So I'm going to teach you these first. So there's these 7 factors of enlightenment. The first one is called mindfulness. This is the same mindfulness from the Eightfold Path. This is a word that's kind of made its way into common conversations and modern conversations, but oftentimes people aren't using this word in the same way that the Buddha used it. The way that the Buddha used this word is awareness of mind, that you have this awareness of your mind. Because in the unenlightened state, you tend to not have awareness. You're not aware of your own thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, your emotions. We're just kind of plowing through life, right? That's the way that the unenlightened mind tends to function. And then when you're starting to train your mind on this path, you start becoming aware of your thoughts and your ideas, your emotions, the things that are going through your mind. And this is very helpful for you. So you need to cultivate this quality of mindfulness where you're aware of your thoughts, your ideas, your feelings, the things that are going through your own mind, because ultimately you're going to need to purify this mind, but you wouldn't be able to purify it if you didn't know what was going on within your own mind. So this meditation that we just did, this is called breathing mindfulness meditation. This is actually helping you to gain awareness of the mind, because when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're aware of that. That's your mindfulness. That's helping you. That's exercising your mind in your daily life to be able to have this mindfulness. But then you need to carry that with you throughout your day so that you can be aware of what's going on within your own mind. So that now when you see unwholesome qualities in your day-to-day life, you can eliminate those out of your mind. But where you see wholesome qualities, because you have wholesome qualities in your mind too, you would like to support those and encourage those. Don't allow them to fade away. Bring them to full growth, full perfection, and full development. So your mindfulness is almost like a guard watching over your mind. The Buddha even describes it this way. He talks about it like a guard watching over your mind. Another way you might think about it, a more modern analogy, is like a virus scanner on a computer, right? A virus scanner on a computer is kind of sitting in the background of the computer, watching over the hard drive. And anytime a virus comes onto the hard drive, it kind of isolates it and quarantines it and then kind of cleans it up and gets it off the hard drive. It's the same thing with your mindfulness. It's kind of watching over your mind. And then when you notice unwholesome qualities, you apply the effort to eliminate that out of the mind. So your mindfulness is like a guard. It's watching over the mind. More specifically, mindfulness is the 4 foundations of mindfulness. This is something that I've taught in this program, where you gain awareness of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. The bodily sensations are an early warning system that you have that's alerting you that you're about to get angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. You might or may not be aware of these right now, that there's this tingling sensation. Before you get angry, there's like this tingling sensation that rises up from your feet towards your head. You might notice tightening in your chest or tightening in your throat, heat in the face, or pressure in the skull. This is the early warning system that's alerting you you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. You haven't actually experienced the anger and frustration in the mind yet. This is like an early warning system that you kind of learn to be able to train your mind to be aware of, because the Buddha teaches you to take action where you apply effort to cut off and let go of any arising discontent feeling. You're not suppressing your feeling or repressing it. You're cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling, when it's just a bodily sensation. So there's other parts of this mindfulness that you need to be aware of, and you need to learn, and you need to understand. And this is part of the 7 Factors of Enlightenment. It's part of the Eightfold Path. It's an important part of the path to enlightenment, is to have this awareness of your mind so you can watch over the mind and you can more easily purify it. Without mindfulness, you'd never be able to get to enlightenment. Now, a lot of people today, when they use this word mindful, they might say, can you mindfully carry this glass of water to this table? You might hear people say this. Can you mindfully carry this glass of water to the table? What they're saying there is, can you carefully carry this glass of water to the table? They're just replacing the word careful with mindful. That's not the way that the Buddha used it. So if other people choose to use it this way, that's on them. That's up to them. But if I was you, I would encourage you to be able to use it in the way that the Buddha used it, so it brings your mind to understanding what the Buddha talked about when he was teaching these teachings. So mindfulness is awareness of mind. And this is important as it relates to all parts of the path to enlightenment, but specifically the 7 Factors of Enlightenment. It's helpful because what you'll notice as you're training your mind and you're fine-tuning your mind is that in some cases your mind is sluggish. that it's dull, it's lethargic. And in other situations, your mind is excited and overactive. And when you notice that with your mindfulness, the Buddha is giving you the tools of how to fix this. That's what the 7 factors of enlightenment are. That when you notice your mind is sluggish or dull or lethargic, you bring in these 3 factors: the factor of investigation, energy, and joy. This is what's going to lift your mind out of that sluggish and dull state into the middle. What investigation is where you have a keen interest in studying and investigating the teachings of the Buddha. Because when your mind is sluggish and dull, that's the last thing you're interested in doing. You just kind of want to sit back on the sofa, watch TV, just kind of mope around. You're not interested in really applying any kind of effort towards investigation of the teachings. As you're investigating the teachings, you're going to start seeing the answers to the problems and difficulties that you're experiencing in life. And that's where this energy will then spring up. This initiative, this ambition, this motivation, enthusiasm, this vigor is going to kind of spring up in the mind like, oh my gosh, there's the answers to things that I've been trying to solve for so many years. And then there's going to be this joy, this unconditioned joy that comes into the mind, where your mind is bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. So it brings the mind out of that sluggish, dull state where you're investigating the teachings. This energy springs up in the mind. And then there's this joy that comes into the mind, bringing your mind to the middle. Because you're not interested in allowing it to stay in that dull and lethargic state, because the longer you allow it to stay there, the harder it is to bring it out of that. Then you're going to notice in certain situations your mind is in this overactive state, that it's kind of bouncing off the walls, maybe even. There's this excited state. And what you would like to do is you like to calm the mind down and bring it to the middle. That's where these next 3 come in: tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. The tranquility is the relaxed, stable, steady stillness in the mind. You're going to need to apply the effort to bring this in. There's no magic button that you can press. It's all within your own mind. You're going to need to have mindfulness to see that your mind is up here and it's overactive, and then you bring in the tranquility to calm the mind down. Then your mind's going to need some concentration or focus. Again, that's why we were doing that meditation today, where you're focused on the breath. That builds your concentration so that you can have more focus and concentration in your day-to-day life. And then you're also going to need to bring in the equanimity, which is the calmness and composure, the evenness of temper, especially in difficult situations. Because you'll notice that your mind in that overactive state doesn't have those qualities. So you need to bring in the tranquility, the concentration, and the equanimity. And if you do this enough, where you notice with your mindfulness, your mind's in this sluggish state, and you bring it to the middle, and when it's in the overactive state, you bring it into the middle, your mind will just stay there all the time. As you're making your way to enlightenment, you're going to need to be attentive to the mind and bring it to the middle in each of these situations. But as your mind gets into the middle and it stays there for longer and longer periods of time, it'll just always stay there because it's a well-trained mind by that point. So I'm going to stop here and see what questions you guys have about anything I've been sharing so far. Remember, we have the microphones there in the white bowl. We have some up here as well. If you'd like to ask questions, let me know. Yes, if you would like to get a microphone. For those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom, or you can raise your hand in Zoom and ask any questions that you like by unmuting your microphone. So yes, ma'am, you have a question? There you go. It's on.
It's on? Okay. Sorry. For mindfulness, I like how you had mentioned the anger. Like you're able to feel it from like the bottom of your feet going up. When you say cut it off, like, so in that way, is it that we do experience it, or we at least like compartmentalize it, or we just completely like we feel it and we let it go, like we don't say anything at all?
What you would like to learn how to do, and the mind doesn't do this out of the box, and it can oftentimes take several months and several years to even build up to this, is that you notice the bodily sensation that the anger or whatever discontent feeling, shyness, resentment, stress, anxiety, even boredom and loneliness, all these feelings are going to have bodily sensations. You would like to catch it before it becomes a feeling. And you'd like to cut it off and let it go. That's why in that meditation, we're focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you let it go and you come back. because what you're doing here is you're training your mind to be able to let go. The goal here isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to notice them sooner and sooner and let them go easier and easier in your meditation. And then in your day-to-day life, whenever you're noticing the discontent feelings arising, you would like to cut it off and let it go. And just understand that you're not going to be able to do that out of the box, right? Like you're not going to go out there and just immediately be able to do this. It oftentimes takes, multiple months and years, even just to be able to notice the bodily sensations every single time. And then you build this internal mechanism in your mind through the meditation to be able to cut off and let go, cut off and let go. You also practice generosity, where you're giving and sharing with other people. This also trains your mind to let go, so that now in your day-to-day life, let's just say you're checking into an airport and you think that you're leaving in about an hour, and they're like, oh, I'm so sorry, ma'am, you can't check in now. Your flight's delayed. You're not leaving for 3 hours. And you notice your anger coming up, instead of being hostile and bitter to the airline company because they're not causing that, it's your own mind. Instead, when you notice the anger coming up, you can cut it off. And if you do that enough, where you train your mind this way, the anger will never arise. That you'll just understand, well, of course, this is impermanence. The world is impermanent. That not all airplanes are going to take off on time. This is normal. This is understandable. And your mind will be very peaceful and very joyful. And you'll just be able to have a polite conversation. Where if you have a craving, desire, attachment, where your mind's longing, yearning, you will get angry and frustrated. But when you notice that anger, you cut it off and let it go, and cut it off and let it go. So you're not suppressing it or repressing it. You're training your mind to be able to let it go. And now your mind will be free more and more, where the anger won't even arise because you will have eliminated the cravings that are causing it.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The gentleman behind you has his hand up.
Hello. I also have 2 questions to ask of you. So the first one is directly branched off of what she was saying when it comes to letting go. Does the feeling of letting go afterwards bring about a somber acceptance?
No, oftentimes what you experience when your mind fully lets go is you experience the joy. Because it's kind of like, if you guys can remember when you guys maybe were in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, when you were together, you were probably quite happy, and you were probably felt a pretty, a fair amount of pleasantness. But over time, the relationship deteriorated and you guys broke up. And when you first broke up, you were angry, you were frustrated. You might have been lonely or bored or missing this person. But at some point, your mind let go. You were like, you know what? If he wants to be with someone else, so be it. Or if she wants to live in a different part of the world, so be it. And your mind let go. And that's where your joy came back, right? Prior to that, you were disgruntled or frustrated or irritated or resentful because your mind was holding on. It was craving this permanence. It wasn't your love that was causing those feelings. It was the mind holding on and craving permanence. The mind wanted something, and it could only be happy if it got what it wanted, which was this person in your life. And now when you experienced impermanence and this person's away from you, the mind's not getting what it wants. So it experiences the anger and frustration. So when your mind fully lets go, it actually will experience joy because your mind will be uplifted. The Buddha refers to this as maturing and release. So while we talk about cutting it off and letting it go, it's really like cut it off and 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 cut it off. And several weeks or months and sometimes even years down the road, your mind finally will let it go. And that's where your joy comes in. So when you fully let go, your mind will have joy. And that's the natural state of the mind, that it's unconditioned joy. Because in the unenlightened state, you can only be happy when you get what you want. If my mom and dad do this, if my brothers and sisters do this, if I have this kind of house and this kind of car, if I have this much money in my bank account, if the weather's like this, then I'll be happy. So your happiness is actually shrinking, and you can only be happy when those things are met. But when you get rid of all of that, it doesn't matter if it's sunny or if it's raining, you can still be happy. It doesn't matter if your bank account balance is here or here, you can still be happy. So by the time you fully let go in the mind, there'll just be joy. That's the natural state of the mind, is joyful and cheerful. It's unconditioned. There doesn't need to be any condition met in order to experience that.
Almost to like celebrate the acceptance.
I don't use the word acceptance because to me that sounds somewhat passive. And these teachings aren't passive. You're not passively just accepting what's going on. Because, for example, like if my son came home with bad grades from school, I'm not just going to accept that, right? But I'm also not going to be bitter and harsh and hostile and start yelling and hollering and screaming at him either, right? So in the middle, it's let's sit down and have a conversation. Why is it that you have this F? What happened? What decisions did you make that led to this? Let me help you. Let me support you in understanding how to get better grades. So I'm not just accepting this particular thing. I don't use that related to the teachings of the Buddha because to me it sounds kind of passive, where these teachings aren't that way. You're actively constructing a wonderful life for yourself, but you're not trying to control other people to do things your way, and you're not trying to control the world. You're understanding the world. I would use that word, that you're understanding that this feeling is going to arise because your mind is unenlightened. You will experience the arising of that, and you will understand that that's what's occurring, but then you'll have the wisdom of how to fix it and how to change it, rather than just allowing the feeling to come into the mind and just allowing your mind to stay wired that way. With wisdom, you understand what this process is, because if you don't cut off and let go at the bodily sensations, it's going to become a feeling. And now once it's a feeling, you've got a real problem to deal with. It's kind of like, if you were on a boat going from Canada to the UK and you're out in the middle of the water, once the water comes into the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. So what you tend to do is you tend to prevent the water from coming into the boat. So it's the same thing, is that you would like to prevent these feelings from ever coming into the mind, because once it's in the mind, you've got to get it out. So the Buddha shares with you this early warning system that your mind has, which is the bodily sensations, so that you can cut off and let go, cut off and let go, cut off and let go. And eventually, if you do this enough with the meditation and all the other teachings that he shares with you, your mind will never have anger because you've eliminated the causes and conditions that are producing it. So there's this period of time that you're training your mind that you need to be very attentive to the mind. And anytime you see a rising of discontent feelings, you cut it off and let it go. But then eventually you get past that and your mind is just peaceful and joyful all the time. What we've referred to as you're beyond training. Your mind no longer needs any training because it's been fully transformed. It's kind of like upgrading your operating system to a new operating system, that your computer is not running on this old archaic software anymore. You've upgraded it to this new software. And that's what you're doing with your mind through the path to enlightenment, is you're upgrading your mind to function through this new operating system. And once you're there, it's effortless and your mind's just always practicing these teachings.
And that also brought me to my second question before I finished. You spoke of mindfulness. I thought that perhaps self-consciousness and mindfulness could intertwine or be the same thing.
They're different. So mindfulness is awareness of mind. That's the way you can think about it generally, is just awareness of mind. I don't know about you, but when I wasn't on the path to enlightenment, I didn't have mindfulness. I was just plowing through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest. I was blaming everybody else for the problems that I was experiencing and all these kinds of things. And I looked back over my shoulder and I saw all these trees knocked down and I started smelling smoke. And I was like, who did that? And then I was like, oh, I did that. That's because I didn't have mindfulness. I didn't have awareness of my own mind, right? So what you're doing here is you're developing this awareness of the mind, because you need to purify the mind. You need to be able to see what are the wholesome qualities that are in your mind, because you would like to support those wholesome qualities and don't allow those to fade away. But then you also have certain unwholesome qualities in your mind that you're going to need to eliminate and get out of your mind. So it's your mindfulness that is helping you to watch over your mind to be able to do that. But more specifically, you need to learn the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is we call bodily sensations, feelings, condition of the mind, and mental objects. This is something that I've already taught, but you can learn this if you would like it. And I actually have a period of time at the end of this class where I kind of open up to see if you guys have any questions about the 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
I understand the balance and permanence, and that's I also strive on. But while we are not there, how would you, how this balance and permanence of the mind affect or contradict the paradoxical unity? What kind of like in the mindfulness, if I appreciate the moment of being happy because of being sad,
Mhm.
or you know why we know beauty because there is ugliness, there's darkness because of light.
Mhm.
So but if we're just doing the permanency or stability, how could we appreciate both?
The way that you appreciate it is that you've already experienced enough heartache and misery and grief and sorrow and sadness. You've already experienced plenty of that in your life. So now, as you train your mind to get to the peacefulness and the joy, you will fully appreciate that, because your mind will just be like that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, just continuously. Your mind will always be cheerful, bright, glad, and uplifted. And you will appreciate that because you will have already known what it's like to experience sadness and sorrow. You don't have to keep experiencing sadness and sorrow the rest of your life in order to appreciate the mental state of enlightenment where your mind's peaceful and joyful permanently. If you could turn that off, then thank you. All right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share with you guys the 5 hindrances. These are going to be solutions for these 5 hindrances. So the first one is called sensual desire. Whenever we talk about craving, desire, attachment in the mind, this is a core teaching of the Buddha. This is what we're typically referring to, which is sensual desire. This is the mind longing, yearning through the senses. So let me explain to you what the mind does here, because what the Buddha is essentially doing is he's giving you an instruction manual to this being who you are. You know, everything in the world has an instruction manual pretty much now. I have a pitcher of water on my desk at home. It probably came with an instruction manual of how to use that pitcher of water, because it's one of those ones that has like a little push button on the top. Pretty much everything has an instruction manual, but nobody gave you an instruction manual to this being who you are to help you understand how this being functions. But the Buddha did. The Buddha explains what's going on and why you experience the things that you experience, and then you can make decisions to transform that and change that. So what sensual desire is where the mind is longing, yearning through the senses, the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, and then the mind itself. It's longing, yearning for agreeable contact. And when it gets agreeable contact, it gets pleasant feelings like happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, or euphoria. But when the mind experiences disagreeable contact through the sense spaces, it experiences painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. So I'll give you guys some examples so you know what I'm talking about here. Let's just say you're at a stoplight in a car and you hear some music coming from the car next to you. And this is music that you particularly like, and you listen to this music and you're like, oh my gosh, that's my jam. All right, let's go. Come on, party, party, party. You're so happy and excited because you're getting this agreeable contact through the ear. There's a certain sound that's coming into the ear, and now the mind finds that agreeable, so it's getting all these pleasant feelings, right? That's from your sensual desire. But now you pull up to the next traffic light and you hear a different type of music. Someone else has played this other type of music, and you don't listen to this music. You see this as disagreeable. And now you're grumpy and you're frustrated. This is because of your sensual desire. The mind is craving permanently agreeable contact. And you're not going to experience that because you live in an impermanent world. Some sounds you hear are going to be agreeable to you, and other sounds you hear are going to be disagreeable. This is the nature of the world. But because of the mind's sensual desire, it wants and craves permanently agreeable contact. And it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. When you're not getting what you want, then the mind experiences some painful feeling like anger, sadness, frustration, and others. This is what you experience in the unenlightened state. Another example, let's use the nose. Let's say you're walking down the street and you walk past a flower shop. and you get an odor coming out of the flower shop and you smell it. And you're like, oh my gosh, that is the best smell ever. I could stand here all day and smell that. That smells amazing. This is agreeable to you. So you get all these pleasant feelings. But then you walk a few more steps and you get a whiff of the sewer. And now you're repulsed by that. Ugh, that is horrible. Why don't they cover that up? Who put that there, right? There's no need to be angry or frustrated in that situation. It's just an impermanent situation. That's all it is. But the mind's craving for permanently agreeable contact through the nose, it can only be happy when it gets what it wants. When it's not getting agreeable contact, it experiences these painful feelings, where instead you can train your mind to understand the world is impermanent. And when you smell the flowers, it's like, wow, that's a really great smell. That's amazing. And now you walk a few more steps and you smell the sewer and it's like, that's pretty ripe. Let me keep walking. Right? No need to get frustrated or angry about it. It's just an impermanent situation. But the mind's central desire, it will hold on and it will crave this permanently agreeable contact. So central desire will hinder you from being able to get to enlightenment, because your mind will see things as agreeable and disagreeable. And you'll form feelings that are pleasant if you have agreeable contact, and you'll form painful feelings if you have disagreeable contact. And the mind will hold on to things and be unwilling to let go. So for example, let's just say I was somebody who drinks a glass of wine every night, and I drink this glass of wine and I have this certain flavor that comes through my tongue that I'm like, wow, that's just such a great flavor. And I get all these pleasant feelings from this flavor of the wine touching my tongue every night. And now I'm unwilling to let that go in order to train my mind to not hold on to this. And now I'm hindered from getting to enlightenment. It's not that there's necessarily a problem with, certain things that we might ingest. Alcohol, of course, can cause the mind to experience lack of mindfulness. But like, say, a piece of chocolate cake, for example, right? A piece of chocolate cake, if you eat a piece of chocolate cake, if you hold on to this and you're unwilling to let go, your mind continues to hold on to it. You'll be unwilling to let that go in order to be able to train your mind to do something else. So for example, if you went to a restaurant and every time you go to this restaurant, you get this piece of chocolate cake and you're so happy and so excited every time you get this piece of chocolate cake, that's your central desire. Because at some point you're going to show up to the restaurant and they're not going to have your chocolate cake. And now you'll be frustrated or angry, or irritated. So what you're going to need to do is train your mind to let go. Doesn't mean that you never eat chocolate cake. It just means for a period of time, you need to train your mind to not have that chocolate cake so that you can train your mind to not form feelings based on that. And now after you go 3 months, 6 months, or whatever it is, without having that piece of chocolate cake, when you show up to the restaurant in the future and you've trained your mind to let go, now you might just decide to start eating your chocolate cake. But if you're unwilling to go through that training period where you've trained your mind to let go, then your mind will be hindered from getting to enlightenment. So your mind's going to need to be willing to let go of its central desires. For example, you're going to need to go a period of time without listening to music. This is something that you're going to need to do in order to get to enlightenment. Because if every time you're on the treadmill, if every time you're cleaning, if every time you're washing dishes, you're listening to music, well, your mind hasn't learned how to do those things without music. That your mind might be bored just standing there on the treadmill and running on the treadmill or washing dishes. You're not going to get rid of the boredom through listening to music. That's your central desire, that it can only feel good if you've got the music. But the music is not permanent. So you need to be able to train your mind to be able to do dishes with music or without music. So you're going to need to go through a training period where you've let go for 6 months or a year, that you can do these kinds of things without the music. And now when you've trained your mind to let that go and you're just as happy on the treadmill or washing dishes with music as without music, now you might just decide to start listening to music again because you enjoy listening to music, but your mind has let go and you've trained your mind to be completely content and peaceful either way. So central desire will hinder somebody from being able to get to enlightenment if they're unwilling to go through that training period, because it's pretty painful when you're trying to train your mind to let go of some of these things. One of the ways that I think about training your mind to get rid of central desire is it's kind of like getting out of the mafia. I don't know if you've ever joined a mafia before. I've never joined a mafia before, but if you ever join the mafia, I suspect that it's very pleasurable when you first get into the mafia. It's like, wow, I've got all these friends. I've got all these new ways to make money. Wow, this is great, right? It might be really pleasurable when you join the mafia, but when you get out of the mafia, it's painful, right? You're not going to be able to walk out of the mafia very easily, right? It's the same thing. That if you've been listening to music while you're washing dishes for many, 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 many years, and you get all this pleasantness, well, when you start choosing to not listen to music while you're washing dishes, it's going to be very painful. You're going to be bored. You're going to experience loneliness and stuff like this. But you're not going to get rid of that by continuing to listen to the music. You need to train your mind to be able to do that by just doing it without listening to the music. So it can be very painful as you're walking away from the central desire. As your mind is getting what it wants with its central desire, it gets those pleasant feelings. But when it's not getting what it wants, it will get painful feelings. And when those painful feelings are arising, you can notice this ill will that will come up in the mind. The ill will is the bitterness, the hostility, the resentment, the aggression, the frustration, irritation, or annoyance. The mind in the unenlightened state firmly believes that it's other people that are causing these feelings. You might think it's your parents or your brothers and sisters or your life partner, your children, your boss, your coworkers that are causing you to experience these feelings. But it's actually your central desire that's causing it. And when your mind's getting what it wants, it's getting that agreeable contact through your senses, you'll experience the pleasantness. But when you're not getting what you want, when you're having disagreeable contact, this ill will come up in the mind. This is the bitterness, the harshness, and hostility. And because the mind firmly believes that it's the outside world that's causing these feelings, what you tend to do is you'll tend to push people away. You might have done this where you've pushed away friends or family out of your life, thinking that they are the ones who are causing your problems. This is called aversion, where you push away a person or a situation thinking that that's going to solve your problems. But you can see that that didn't solve the problem because you still get angry or frustrated or irritated. If they were the true cause of your problem, when you push them out of your life, you would be peaceful and joyful from that point forward. The second thing that a person will tend to do when this ill will is arising is they'll tend to be bitter and harsh and hostile towards people through their intentions, their speech, and their actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at another animal, trying to fear it into doing things your way. And then the third thing you'll tend to do is put expectations on people or try to pressure them or control them to do things your way. And this may be happening to you too, where your parents or other people around you might be trying to put expectations on you and trying to control you. Or people might be pushing you out of their life, or they might be bitter and harsh and hostile to you. It's not you that's causing that. It's their central desire that's causing it. But when this ill will is rising up in the mind, this is actually going to hinder you from being able to experience enlightenment, because as long as you're bitter and harsh and hostile with people, then you're not going to be able to experience the liberation and the peace and the joy that the enlightened mind can experience. So there's solutions to both of these. The solution for the central desire is to eliminate the craving, desire, attachment that's causing it. That's the longing, the yearning. That's where breathing mindfulness meditation comes in, where you're focused on the breath. And anytime the mind moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring your mind back to the breath. You train your mind to let go. Same thing with generosity. Generosity is training your mind to let go, where you're giving and sharing more than is strictly required in any given situation without any expectation of anything in return, such as your time, effort, energy, and resources. So you'd like to be able to share with people, because when you have central desire, when you have these cravings, desires, attachments, you'll tend to be somewhat selfish. You'll hold on to things. It's my money, my boyfriend, my girlfriend, my phone, my clothes, my jewelry, mine. But you need to be able to share, live open-handedly, and live joyfully, sharing with other people. So these are the things that are targeting your central desire, which is breathing mindfulness meditation and generosity. But then you're using your mindfulness to guard the mind. The Buddha refers to this as guarding the doorways to discontentedness, because the doorways are the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, when you experience contact there, and then the mind itself, that the mind can look at things that you've experienced in the past, and now you can form feelings based on it today, even though something happened in the past. Or there could be something that's going to happen in the future that you're forming feelings about today. So these 6 doorways is where you're going to experience contact that is now going to produce either pleasantness or painfulness in the mind. But if you watch over your mind and you learn how to do that, you can actually transform your mind to no longer do that. Then when this ill will is coming up, because the mind's not getting what it wants, there's some remedies here as well. You can actually practice loving kindness meditation. This is a meditation I'm going to be doing this evening at 6:30. If you're coming for our Sunday night meditation, it syncs up with the Sunday night walking market. If you're coming to the walking market, I'm going to be doing loving kindness here, where it's a meditation that's different than what we just did, where you're essentially rewiring your mind to be loving and kind. You're bringing up this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, so it can permeate in your mind. And then you're going to need to go out into the world through your intentions, your speech, and your actions to be loving and kind with the people around you. If you were just meditating, you wouldn't actually be able to get rid of your ill will or your anger. You're going to need to actually go out into the world and be loving and kind through your intentions, speech, and actions. So this loving kindness meditation and practicing loving kindness in your day-to-day life, this is what's going to actually transform your mind away from the ill will, the anger, the hatred, and the bitterness. So these are 2 that are going to hinder someone from getting to enlightenment, but there's solutions to it. And that's what the Buddha is teaching you. Then the 3rd one here is called complacency. What complacency is dullness, a lethargic condition, where the mind lacks motivation or enthusiasm. If you look at the translations of the teachings of the Buddha, there's really old translations that you'll see people refer to this as sloth and torpor. And I don't think that really tells you what this is. So when I selected the word choices for the book series that I share, I use the word complacency, because that's what the Buddha is talking about, how the mind can become complacent, where it's dull and lethargic, it's lacking motivation or enthusiasm or ambition, because an enlightened being will have those. You will have ambition, you will have enthusiasm, you will have motivation in your mind. It'll be bright and cheerful and glad and uplifted. But if you're complacent with your practice, you can understand complacency like if you weren't meditating, the mind's complacent. Or if you're choosing not to come to the temple to be able to learn or attend online, then your mind's complacent. If you're not reading books and attending to doing this inner growth and this inner development to be able to cultivate your wisdom, the mind is complacent. You can understand all of that, right? But the Buddha talked about complacency to a very deep level. He mentioned that even if your mind has an unwholesome thought and you do nothing about it, he says you're complacent. Your mind's complacent. So let's just say you're walking down the street and you're noticing that you're starting to judge other people and you're looking down on other people. This is the mind's ego. This is the mind's conceit. If you notice this and you do nothing about it, your mind's complacent. Or if you're angry and you're frustrated, and instead of cutting that off and letting it go, you just let that anger and frustration stay in the mind is complacent. So you would like to have the opposite of that, which is diligence, determination, dedication. That's what's going to transform this. So the way you get out of this complacency, this dull and lethargic state, is what we were just talking about with the 7 factors of enlightenment. You would like to practice the enlightenment factor of investigation, energy, and joy. That's what's going to lift your mind out of that complacent state to be able to bring it to the middle. And then also you're going to need to be attentive to the mind. That when you're walking down the street and you're noticing you're judging someone else, maybe because of their hairstyle, their clothing, maybe their skin color, maybe the way that they talk or some other thing like that, when you start noticing your mind judging someone and looking down on them, cut that off and let it go. Don't allow your mind to do that, because if you allow your mind to stay wired that way, it's just going to keep doing that. You can transform your mind by cutting that off. But then when you're noticing you're complacent with, for example, your meditation or studying the teachings of the Buddha and things like this, you would like to lift your mind out of that with investigation, energy, and joy. So any questions on any of these three here that are going to hinder someone from getting to enlightenment?
I had a question regarding the central desire.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the 7 factors of alignment, one of them is joy and energy. And personally, in my life, I found that when I do have something disagreeable in my senses, the temptation to take that and use it as some form of joke or way of appreciating it, almost like as if it's funny. Would you say that is a way of complacency, or would you say that is along the lines of the way to alignment?
No, this, humor can be used as a way to help bring the mind to an uplifted state. Like using this example of the flowers, right? You walk past the flower shop and you smell a really wonderful smell, and then you walk a few more steps and you smell the sewer. If you just started laughing about it, that could actually be helpful for you. So your mind doesn't go the opposite direction, which is the disgruntledness and frustration. That's what you're not interested in allowing the mind to do. So this kind of thing can actually be helpful. It's redirecting the mind away from this disagreeable odor, and instead just laughing and having a good time.
Almost like using the irony to appreciate the good central agreeable.
It's kind of like, oh my gosh, there's that impermanence again. Right. Oh wow, that's really ripe. That's really strong. Hey guys, why don't we just keep walking? This is a good idea, right? Like you can just laugh about it and laugh it off, right? Like brush it off. Exactly. Rather than allowing your mind to dwell in it and now being angry and frustrated.
Exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay. All right, so now let's go to the next two. There's restlessness and worry. This is like an overactive mind. Some people might even refer to this as anxiety. If you're experiencing this can actually hinder the mind from getting to enlightenment, where there's this restless state of mind, or you're worried about your own unskillful conduct. Because as you're making your way to enlightenment, you're going to have plenty of missteps. Sometimes when people come and they learn the teachings of the Buddha and they learn about what is wise and unwise, they really worry about their own unwise decisions. But you're going to have plenty of missteps between now and enlightenment. You're going to trip over your feet many, 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 many times. So if you were worried every single time you experience this unskillful conduct, it's going to hinder you from getting to enlightenment. Instead, you need to just look at that situation, figure out what mistakes that you made, what were the missteps, learn from that, cultivate wisdom, and then aim to do better next time. That's what you need to be able to do. But sometimes the mind will, drift into this worry, and then it'll become restless, where there's this anxiety in the mind. So you need to be able to eliminate any kind of restlessness and worry, where you're not allowing the mind to be in that anxious, overactive state, and you're not worried about the things that you're doing that are unwise, because you're going to have plenty of missteps along the way. The way that you solve that is with the tranquility, concentration, and equanimity. So with your mindfulness, when you see your mind is in that overactive state, you would like to bring in that calmness, that composure, the focus, the concentration, the stillness and peacefulness. And where you see your mind's going into that worry, like, oh my gosh, I talked to my mom with that harsh words. Oh, I feel so miserable. Why did I do that? Instead, just cut that off and be like, man, I didn't have a good conversation with mom. I'd like to do this better, and now you kind of look at the teachings of the Buddha. Maybe you talk to your teacher, you get some guidance, you get some help, and now you can actually aim to do better next time, instead of beating yourself up and feeling guilty and shameful about the things that you've done that were unwise. Use it as an opportunity to motivate you to learn more wisdom and improve. Then there's something called doubt. What doubt is where you have doubt about the teachings of the Buddha and the ability of them to actually attain enlightenment. People oftentimes have doubt when they come to the path to enlightenment. I know I had doubt. I had plenty of doubt when you come to the path, because how could you ever have confidence in something, which is the opposite of doubt, if you don't even know what it is, right? When you first come to the path to enlightenment, how could you ever have confidence in the teachings of the Buddha? But if you have doubt, it's normal. It's something that's going to hinder you from getting to enlightenment. You're going to need to overcome that doubt. And the way you overcome your doubt is you actually investigate the teachings. By investigating the teachings of the Buddha, by examining them, you will learn more and more that they're true, because you will intellectually understand them. You will reflect on them to verify whether they're true or false. And then as you practice them and you see the condition of your mind in your life gradually improving, you'll get to a point where you have no doubt. You will know that these teachings are absolutely leading to your enlightenment. You won't be enlightened yet by the time you eliminate your doubt, but you'll be well on your way, because you'll have seen the transformation to your mind. So people oftentimes have doubt about the Buddha and whether this person even existed or not. They can have doubt about his teachings. They can have doubt about the community that you're part of and the ability of this community to be able to help you and support you in your journey to enlightenment. You can have doubt about your teacher. This is a big one that people oftentimes have doubt about their own teacher. Or you could have doubt about yourself and your own ability to get to enlightenment. People might be like, I can't do it. Other people can do it, but I can't do it, right? So you would like to get rid of that doubt. And the way that you do it is you harness this doubt. This is what I encourage people to do. That if you have doubt in your mind, just admit it to yourself. Just be like, yeah, you have doubt, right? And now you roll up your sleeves, you sink your teeth in. You're like, I don't know if these teachings of the Buddha lead to enlightenment or not, but I'm going to find out. And now you roll up your sleeves and you sink your teeth into it and you examine his teachings. Start reading the books that are based in the original words of the Buddha. Not just any books, because there's plenty of books that are labeled Buddhism, but it's actually not his actual teachings. So be sure that you're learning with the original words of the Buddha. And now as you investigate and examine those teachings, you reflect on them to verify if they're true or false, and then you practice his teachings. Eventually you'll eliminate your doubt, because you'll see that it actually has been working to improve the condition of your mind in your life. So any questions on restlessness and worry or doubt? Yes, please help yourself. Okay. Sure. Sure. I'm going to repeat that for you because the mic wasn't on for the people online. The question was, how do I get rid of the worry, right? Because the mind's anxious. Okay. So remember now, I'm all the way at the end of this program, the very last class, where I'm helping people to understand the obstacles, the things that you're asking about. That's what I teach at the beginning of the program. So on next Sunday, I will start the beginning of the program. If you would like to learn each Sunday little by little, you could. Or if you're going to be around this week, or if you'd like to learn online, I'll be teaching people this week. Because what you need to learn is the Eightfold Path. That's what I'm going to teach on Tuesday morning in this program. That's the complete plan that's going to teach you how to get rid of that anxiety. It's not just a 3-minute or 5-minute conversation. It's going to take me 2.5 hours to teach the entire Eightfold Path. And then you're going to need to revisit that multiple times. You need to be able to be dedicated to your own growth and your own development so you can get away from that, because otherwise your complacency will set in. This is a very common hindrance. There's oftentimes plenty of people that come here. Like this room is full today. It's oftentimes fuller, right? We'll have 80 people here. There'll be people coming in and they can't even get into the room and it'll be completely full. But the number of you that actually decide to take these teachings seriously and take your life seriously and actually do the work to transform your mind, it's usually a very small amount, right? So sometimes people will ask me questions. How do I get a better relationship with my mom and dad? Or how can I do this? Or how can I do that? How can I eliminate my worry? And I share with you, it's in the Eightfold Path. You need to study the Eightfold Path. But then people just get up and they leave. They never actually take the time to actually study. They're not hurting me. It's not causing me any harm. But for themselves, their mind is complacent. So it's great that you asked this question, but if you really are going to get the help, you need to be able to choose to step forward to actually do the work. And you're going to need to learn either on Tuesday morning, if you like, or from one of our videos or our podcast or from our book or any of these other things. You can actually learn how to do this, but it's not going to be a 3 or 5 minute type of answer, unfortunately. It'd be nice if it was that easy, but it's just not. You have a question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
You spoke of, I believe when you spoke about the doubt, I took it as harnessing it as a source of strength and using it to completely eliminate complacency.
Yes.
Would you say that's along the lines of the Eightfold Path?
Yeah, the reason why someone is complacent is because of the central desire. The mind's holding on. It's like, no, because here's the thing, is that the unenlightened mind craves permanence. It does not like impermanence, right? That's another way to say it. The mind craves permanence. It craves that permanently agreeable contact. But another way to say it is that the mind does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. Well, the very first thing that someone learns on the path to enlightenment is you've got to change. And the mind doesn't like that, right? The mind just wants to stay where it's at. It doesn't really want to do this work. And that's where you've got to build up this determination, this dedication, and this diligence, where you look at the mind almost like a 3-year-old child that's throwing a temper tantrum. And the adult in the room, the person, needs to look at the mind and be like, hey, dude, you need some training. And your mind's going to be like, nah, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, because the mind doesn't really want to do the work. So you really need to get rid of that complacency by eliminating the central desire, because the mind will hold on to things. So all of this, the Buddha teaches this in a certain sequence, in a certain order for a reason, because here the central desire is going to produce the ill will. And it's going to produce the complacency. And then the mind's going to have this restlessness and worry. And then there's this doubt that's there. And now what you do is you investigate the teachings, and it works backwards, right? By investigating the teachings, you eliminate your doubts. You eliminate your restlessness and worry. You've eliminated your complacency. You're eliminating your ill will, and you eliminate your central desire. Right? So the Buddha's teachings do this where it'll go down and then it'll come back out. So the central desire is causing the mind to continue to have ill will, continue to have complacency, continue to have restlessness and worry, and continue to have doubts. But by investigating the teachings, you'll get rid of your doubt, you'll get rid of the restlessness and worry, you get rid of the complacency, the ill will, and the central desire. So this is what you need to understand, is there's going to need to be change. You can't keep doing the same things you're doing now and expect to get to peace and joy. You're going to need to put in the effort and the work to transform your mind. But the beauty about this is it's a permanent solution, right? It's kind of like if you were at the bottom of a mountain and you were looking at a big mountain, it's like, man, that's a tall mountain. I don't know if I can climb that mountain. But if you just focus on one step at a time, next thing you know, you're halfway up the mountain. And it's like, wow, this is pretty easy. But the thing is, when you get to at the top of an actual mountain, you get a beautiful view, you get fresh air, but then you need to come back down, right? It's really, you did all that work for however little bit of temporary time that you're up there at the top of the mountain. But this path is different. When you get to the top of the mountain, you don't ever come back down. Your mind is permanently in that peaceful and joyful mental state. So you do all this work and now you get to enjoy it. So that's what I would encourage people to do, is to realize that you're going to need to put in some effort and some determination and diligence. You're going to need to change. But change, if you embrace that change, you can really experience some wonderful things in your life, because people don't even realize what the mind is capable of and what the enlightened mental state is really like. If people could just taste it just for like a couple of seconds or a couple of minutes, and then they actually went back to the unenlightened state and they needed to do the work to get to enlightenment, they would let nothing stand in their way. It's kind of like probably the first time we tasted chocolate, we were like, oh my gosh, how can I get more of that? Right? And now you just kind of like want to make your way to the chocolate. It's the same thing. If people could just taste enlightenment just for a few seconds or a few minutes, then they would let nothing stand in their way of getting to it, because your mind's so peaceful, so joyful. Your life is such at ease and so fulfilling, so satisfying, that you would let nothing stand in your way. But these are the things that are standing in your way, is these hindrances.
To me, it sounds like you almost have to take care of yourself as if you were your own child.
Yeah, that's what you're doing. You're in this world by yourself. You know, you have parents, you have siblings, you have friends, you have maybe a life partner, something like that. But you're here by yourself. You know, you're going to leave this world all alone by yourself. And you need to get comfortable with being with other people and spending time with other people. But you also need to get comfortable with spending time with yourself too, this own being. And now you understand that the very best thing you could do is work on this mind. Because the mind is like the CPU of a computer. I know I'm using a lot of technology analogies today, but you know, if the CPU isn't working well, the monitor, the keyboard, the mouse, none of it's working well, right? Your mind is the CPU for this being who you are. And if it's polluted, everything in your life seems, you know, somewhat miserable to a certain degree, right? Of course, you have little bright spots here and there, but it's only a matter of time before you become irritated and frustrated about something. But there's this better way of life out there that the Buddha taught that people are unaware of. The Thai people are aware of it. That's why they have Buddhism, you know, on every street corner, pretty much, there's a temple. So the Thai people are well aware of it. And this is why there's a lot of peacefulness and joy here in this country. But the Thai people don't go out into the world and try to force or convince other people to understand the world in the way that the Buddha's teachings teach them. So if people would like to come here and learn it, great. And if they're not, okay, that's fine too. It's their choice. But the more you learn it, the more you'll see that it's a much, much, much better way of life. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, hi. So regarding meditation,
Mm-hmm.
so what advice do you have for those who try to meditate and their mind is just racing really fast,
Mm-hmm.
just like all the time, and you get frustrated by having to like let it go, let it go,
Yep.
let it go? Is meditation the only way to achieve everything?
You need meditation. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation, but you need more than just meditation. There's much more. That's why there's 8 factors on the path. The reason why you're frustrated in your meditation is you're craving for it to be different. That's the mind's longing, yearning. You want this, but you're getting this. That's the whole underlying problem. So you need to understand that every single meditation, no matter how busy your mind is, it's beneficial for you. It's helpful for you. But what people will tend to do is they will judge their meditation as being a good meditation or a bad meditation. And now there's like a downward spiral because you're just constantly judging your meditation and it never meets your expectations. But that's what the unenlightened mind's doing with everything else too. They want their mom and dad to be like this, but they're like this. And now they're angry and frustrated because they're not meeting their expectations. Or they want their boss to do this, but their boss is doing this and it's not meeting their expectations. So now with meditation, that's what someone will do is they'll have a certain expectation and it's not meeting their expectations. So as soon as you lay that line of this is what I expect, it's going to sometimes meet that, but sometimes it's going to fall short because of impermanence. So you got to get rid of any expectations of how your meditation should or shouldn't be. Just do it. Just do it. And understand your mind's going to be busy. Even as an enlightened being, you're going to experience thoughts during your meditation. The difference is in the unenlightened state, you're going to experience a bombardment of thoughts. It's going to be like thought, 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 thought. Or you'll have a thought, you'll look at it, you'll play with it, you'll indulge in it. You'll be like 2 or 3 minutes down the road. You're like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm meditating. Let me bring my mind back. So that's what you'll experience in the unenlightened state. In the enlightened mental state, you'll still have a thought, but you'll notice it right away. You'll cut it off and let it go. And then there'll be quietness and stillness for about 30 seconds, maybe upwards of a minute, perhaps, where the mind's quiet and still. So the goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. You can't eliminate your thoughts. If anybody comes out of meditation and they're like, oh my gosh, I eliminated all my thoughts. Well, how did you know that? Because in meditation, you had the thought that you eliminated your thoughts. So how did you eliminate your thoughts? It's not possible for you because you will have a thought. Even having the thought, I eliminated my thoughts, is a thought. So you haven't eliminated your thoughts, right? But that's oftentimes what you'll hear people say is, oh my gosh, I eliminated my thoughts. They didn't eliminate their thoughts, right? So that's not your goal. Your goal is to notice it sooner and sooner and cut it off and let it go easier and easier. Don't have any expectations of what your meditation should or shouldn't be. Just stay committed to it. The next thing I'll share with you is if you have a very busy mind, one of the things you can do is walking meditation. I'm going to be teaching that this week on Wednesday at 2 p.m. as part of the course that I'm teaching. At 2 p.m. on Wednesday, I'll teach walking meditation. That is really good for an overactive mind that has a hard time to just sit still and be still. This is an excellent meditation for that. So you might decide to learn that. And if you're not going to be here, I have this recorded on our YouTube channel. You can see the videos. Just do a search for walking meditation on our YouTube channel, and you'll see different videos where I've recorded myself teaching it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, so you can get this book many different ways. You can download it for free. You can take it and go print it if you like on your own. You can get it here for just reimburse us because we print them here and then you're reimbursing us so we can buy some more. Or you can get it on Amazon since your country has access to Amazon. So you can get it in all those different ways. And each week I go chapter by chapter helping students to learn. So yeah, you can attend classes from California. The classes are going to be Saturday night for you or Sunday morning. It just depends. If you would like to be attending on Saturday night, it would be 7 p.m. Or Sunday morning would be 7 a.m. right now. So it just depends on what type, if you'd like to wake up early or you'd like to watch on Saturday. And then sometimes you're not going to be able to make the class. So that's why it's recorded on YouTube. So as soon as I'm done with class, it'll be on YouTube immediately. So you could just digest it at your own pace if you like. And I've taught this course many, 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 many times. So there's plenty of recordings, but you can watch the live one or you can watch the recording. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay. So now there's one hindrance, which is the hindrance of all hindrances. And the Buddha talks about this one extensively in his teachings. These are the 5 hindrances, but I'll just share this last one with you. It's called ignorance. That's what people tend to translate it as. The phrase that I use is the unknowing of true reality, that the mind just lacks wisdom. The mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind is confused. It doesn't understand that it's causing its own anger and frustration. The mind in the unenlightened state will firmly believe that it's other people who are causing you to be angry and frustrated. I'm sure you've been in knockdown, drag out arguments with people before where you've been adamantly trying to convince them to stop doing what they're doing, or else you're going to continue to get angry and frustrated. This is the mind trying to control the outside world, and it's craving permanence. It wants everybody to do things a certain way. And that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world. But the mind in the unenlightened state lacks wisdom of these natural laws. This is oftentimes translated as ignorance, but a better way to think about it is misunderstanding, misperception, confusion, that the mind has misperceptions about how the world truly works and how your mind truly works. And because of that lack of wisdom, the mind will stay stuck in the unenlightened state. And that's why on the path to enlightenment, everything is about the cultivation of wisdom, that you're not looking to believe anything whatsoever. You would like to investigate and examine the teachings, reflect on them to verify them, and practice them. That's what's going to get you to wisdom. So the way you transform the ignorance or the unknowing of true reality is to get to wisdom. And that's why you don't believe anything that you read in books. You don't believe anything that a teacher says. You need to learn, reflect, and practice. And that's what's going to transform the mind away from this ignorance. Yes, sir.
Would you say that in order to have wisdom and in order to be able to avoid ignorance, as it's translated, that you would need to have some sort of humility?
part of the path to enlightenment is to train the mind to be humble, because what the mind has in the unenlightened state is it'll have ego. This is conceit, where you'll put yourself above people and you'll look down on certain people. But if your mind does that, you're also going to put yourself below people in certain situations and look up to people in such awe that you'll be shaken up, maybe like a boss or maybe a celebrity or a famous politician. You might be kind of shaken up around that person. So in order to get to enlightenment, you need to be peaceful and joyful at all times, where your mind's stable and steady. So you can't do that if your mind is looking down on people or putting yourself below people. So there's humility or being humble in all parts of the path. But being humble doesn't mean that you put yourself below people, that you can look at everybody as being equal. And that's what you'll ultimately be able to cultivate through training the mind. And that's part of this program. By the time we get to chapter 16 in this book, I teach you about the ego and how to actually eliminate it from the mind.
And that's very interesting to me, because as she was talking about earlier on, to try to control, I was thinking back to when you had spoken about the breathing mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And I continued to think and came up with the assumption that perhaps the best way to be humble and to be mindful as much as possible every day is to be willing to give that to other people, to be mindful to other people and for other people. Would you say that's along the lines of the Eightfold Path?
The mindfulness is your mindfulness. You're not being mindful of other people. That's the mind thinking that the word mindful is careful. Mindfulness is all within your own mind, that you're becoming aware of what's going on in your own mind, your own thoughts, ideas, and feelings. It's all within your own mind.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome. Okay, so I'm going to end class here by thanking all of you guys for joining. Thank you for your interest to learn and understand the teachings of the Buddha. And since this is the last class of this kind of Sunday classes that I've been doing, we're going to be restarting next week. I'd also like to take a moment to thank anybody here and anybody who's online, anybody who's watching this through the recording, to say thank you for any generosity that you might have practiced in order to be able to help me to be able to share these teachings. There's people that come here to the temple that clean the temple. There's people who donate some funds to allow us to be able to pay for lights and water and things like this, and people that support us to be able to share these teachings. We never have an expectation that people would do that, but at the end of a program like this, I'd like to just take a moment to say thank you to anybody who shared any generosity in any way to be able to help us to be able to share these teachings with you. So thank you very much for anything you've done to be able to help us to be able to share these teachings with you and with other people throughout the world. What I'm going to be doing tonight at 9 o'clock is I'm going to be sharing the same talk at 9 p.m. I do it twice a day because there's people right now in Europe, for example, that are sleeping, that can't attend the live class. So I do it twice a day so that no matter where you are in the world, you can attend a live class. And then at 6:30 tonight, I'm going to be doing loving kindness meditation. So you guys are welcome to come for that if you guys would like. It's a different type of meditation than this, and it actually targets that ill will that's in the mind, the anger, the hostility, the bitterness. Because as long as you're putting that out, it's just going to keep coming back to you in your relationships. And then all next week, as you heard me share, I'm going to be teaching the Foundation and the Path to Enlightenment course. You'll find all these details and others on our bulletin board over there. You'll also find it on our website as well, so you can check buddhadailywisdom.com. You're also welcome to come talk with me, and I'll get you plugged in to the things that you need to be able to help you. So have a very lovely and wonderful rest of your day, whatever you do. Take care and be well. Sawadee krap. Sawadee krap.
Thank you again for watching. Enjoy your meditation. Look forward to seeing you online and answering any questions that you might have. Thank you so much.